I'll be actually taking you through the 12 security trends and some of the issues and key elements that will be impacting the information security professionals in the coming 6 months to 1 year horizon. Starting with the first trend, I would like to talk about cloud computing because it's been something which has been talked about a lot in the technology world. But I think from an information security point of view, what it really means to us is that security as a service is something which will improve and which has been growing for last couple of years, and it's something which we are already able to see its value in terms of how we actually use cloud and derive security value-added services through that. There are examples such as getting the DDoS attacks managed through a cloud, or getting a clean pipe, or anti-spam email services, security services. So there are lots that is already happening, and I think that trend will continue. But I think the other important aspect of cloud computing is actually how the evolution of a techno-legal conversation will actually start happening going forward. Because a lot of times you will find that a technology guy not able to relate to a legal person and vice versa. And so, but because the issues with cloud are so interlinked with technology and law together, that you would want to have people who can do both these interactions confidently and having been empowered to be able to take those decisions. Moving on, we look at virtualization. There's lots that is actually already happening, and you're already seeing virtualization getting it's something which is a roller coaster. And you don't think you will be able to stop that. I think, as security professionals, we need to enable that change to happen. But while we do that, there's a lot of work required to be done in terms of acquisition of skill sets and getting the right people trained to be able to handle it from a security point of view, to define the right policy, to define the right standard, to define right process, so that people are able to operate that. And I think, unfortunately, what has happened is that just like in past, technology has actually overtaken the security professionals, and we have a lot of catch-up work to do. I think that's something which is a key challenge right now, as to virtualization is already happening and happened, and the security professionals are catching up. And so we need to make sure that that acquisition of skills is hastened, so as to be able to make sure that now security is embedded when systems gets virtualized. On virtualization, the other important aspect is that the traditional model of CIA, where we've been focusing on access control, we need to start looking at from a point of view of how virtualized world happen, in terms of the hypervisors and the access to that, and it opens up a new paradigm of doing access control. And a lot of times you will find that while the traditional access control is still done by the security professionals, the virtualization, it falls into an infrastructure category, and so it continues to be done by the IT professionals. And that's the place where the shift needs to happen, as to what are the places where we want to build in controls so that access is managed, because there's a risk to availability, and people can actually by just click of a button delete the whole server segments. And so it's important for you to make sure that you have that embedded in the access control matrices. Moving on to the next trend, which is on mobile computing, and there is already a trend which is happening in terms of leveraging on the current deployment of mobiles within the country, and financial inclusion is going to be a very key enabler for this trend, by virtue of you allowing mobile money and different other products using mobile as an infrastructure for doing transactions. But I think there's also a change which is expected, which is the lifestyle applications, and the trend of moving towards apps and people using more and more heavy duty mobiles or iPads or tablets. And with the 3G, coming somewhere early next year, that space is going to get really hot up. And, someone needs to worry about the security of all these applications, and so much of data which will be, used, uploaded, manipulated, stored by the different consumers. I think the the distinction between what is personal data and what is corporate data is going to be very hazy. And so it's very important that you need to have a right policy framework attached in terms of how we use mobile devices in the by the corporate users, and their do's and don'ts, and the responsibility in terms of how actually information is managed and used when such avalanche of applications happen in the mobile space. I think we have already seen a lot of portable memory being available, so much so that even in security conferences you have gifts been given as portable memories, which is actually a big no. So because of the proliferation of all these memory devices, we have an important issue of data protection and the evolution of use of products such as data leak prevention and data rights management. So I think there's already a good amount of maturity which has been achieved by use of the combination of these two solutions, and I guess this trend is going to will continue because we are actually making a big transition between parameterized security to really information protection. So information can be outside your control, but so long as you have control over that information, you actually start managing it. And the solution that we're talking about with DLP and DRM are nothing but really trying to embed that intelligence and empowering that information to find its own destination by virtue of defining those properties, which never existed before. My view on this is that as and when there is a business case which gets created for use of social networking in corporate, I think people like us, security professionals, will allow that change to happen. There is also one more interesting aspect of social networking, which is not really in terms of control, but in terms of how we actually make a distinction between what an employee can do and cannot do. Now, in a real world, but a social world, if an employee goes and talks about an organization in a closed room, I think it's still okay because it's an expression of thought and freedom. But at the same time, if the same employee decides to do the same social feedback or communication on values or anything related to the company to the outside world, it becomes a issue which needs to be debated further in terms of how do you manage and what is personal and what is not personal. Wherein you always have a technology and then security becomes an afterthought, and then we start fixing the identified vulnerabilities. Unfortunately, that trend will continue, and I don't think there is going to be major change in the way we actually look at security from that perspective. But having said that, I think the key enabler for that change to get corrected is actually vendor organizations doing both, which is to deliver technology and also security at the same time. And if, for example, we are in the banking, and if somebody as a banking customer, it will be your right to ask for security without being charged for it. So why can't we do the same thing when it comes to buying security solutions or buying technology, where security should be my right when I acquire a technology, rather than trying to go and find out semantics or McAfee's of the world to find out a solution for the problem that has been bought because of the new technology which has been acquired. Some of the examples that I can talk about is EMC and RSA coming together, McAfee and Intel coming together, or even IBM for that matter, not just having a services stack, but also security as a very important product portfolio in their kitty.